Yo, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the SVDOU metagame. It's been about a month since Deoxys Attack got banned. The metagame has stabilized a little bit, a fair amount. The DOU Council has recently put out a survey regarding several parts of the metagame, elements, Pokemon, mechanics, etc., etc. And so today, Shister and I will just be going over like the topics on the survey, giving our viewpoints, and probably having a fair amount of debate because, contrary to usual, we actually do have some disagreements here. I think, or maybe I don't know. We'll have to see. But yeah, hope you enjoy. So yeah, we'll first take a look at the survey. How much do you enjoy playing SVDOU right now? How stable or balanced? Typical questions. You always do this. Torn, Pow, Gambit, um, the bridge, Whimsicott. It's a bit of a leftover from the last survey. Tera, evasion abilities, and whether we should free certain Pokemon back into the metagame. But yeah, we'll just start out at the very beginning. Sister, why don't you start? How do you feel? How much do you enjoy playing SVDOU right now?
I'm teetering on on 4 or 3. I think I put a 4 in my actual survey response already. The the styles in the metagame are unique and fast, and you do have a lot of tools to play around with, but the type balance and the offensive pressure in the tier by said types is really, really limiting.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I think this is probably like a 3 for me. If I'm being honest, I think like in a lot of respects, it's a much better than other metagames we've had. Um, but at the same time, it's just like weirdly centralized and kind of just like I don't know. It's very it's not very fulfilling to me. I think this tier because I think there's a few issues. Primarily for me, I think it's like Corn is just very broken. Um, but generally, I'd still like more enjoyable. I think than other metagames. Because there's no like Flutter running around, there's no DOA running around. So I think that kind of just leads into the next question. I think this is like a pretty balanced metagame in terms of like I think it's like mostly skillful. I don't think any metagame is ever a 5, but I think it's probably more like a 4. Um, what are your thoughts on
I
this
would
question?
solidly I would solidly say that this is a 4 on balancing. There are a couple very specific things in this metagame that are RNG reliant, but as far as like the actual mons you're given to play with have tools to beat each other very consistently, and there isn't like too much like para hacks or anything like that going around. But the bigger issue is the aforementioned over centralization of top level Pokemon.
Yeah, yeah. I It's a little bit interesting. I think the VR was recently updated. I think the VR, one of the main issues
You
it
should open
has.
that.
I'll open that. Yeah, 1 second.
'Cause I'm pretty sure I counted this correctly when I looked at the VR, but there was significantly more tier 2 Pokemon than tier 3. Well,
Yeah, it looks like there is. Yeah,
maybe not significantly.
there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's like the same amount.
We let
Unless I
D-Knight
just
get
can't
tier
count.
3.
But
D-Knight it's tier 3.
bro, D-Knight is definitely tier 3. I don't know what you're on about. But I think one of my issues I have with this is that I don't think Wellspring is the only tier 1. I don't think that's accurate to the metagame whatsoever at all. I think people just have a little bit of preconceived notions of what constitutes a tier 1 Pokemon based on what we've like had. But really, to me, tier 1 right now is like 5 or 6 Pokemon, and that's really kind of frustrating to build. I think in my actual votes, I said like Wellspring, Lando, Torn were the tier 1s, but I really think like maybe those three, but like there's like a couple more that really could be like pushing the boundary of tier one and tier two. And I
Incineroar
think,
comes to mind for that.
yeah, it's in like weird spot, struggles with some of the other meta mods, but like it's such an excellent positional tool to have. I don't really think any team struggles from having instant unless you're trying to fit another fire type there. But yeah, I think this VR with so many tier twos that, in my opinion, are pretty close to being tier one. It's very centralized. I think the drop off between tier two and tier three right now is pretty immense. If I'm being honest, like I really these mods I really don't want to be using as much as like these tier twos. Except for maybe the exception of like Lando T. I think Lando T is a little bit underappreciated. Uh, but at the same time,
And
it's
then tier
harder to
f-
run Lando T when there's Lando I running around. But the drop off here is something I think we'll have to get into because this is a very centralized metagame. It's not like centralized around like one mon like other metagames we've had, but there's like a very clear like top six or seven, I'd say. It's like Wellspring,
There's a very clear top
Ensign,
strategy that forces
Lando,
certain team
Torn,
styles.
Bolt, Rilla. Yeah, yeah. I think primarily Torn. Anyways, let's get back right on track. Just a brief VR. Might link that in the
Tier 3 to
description.
tier 4. Oh
Oh,
my
tier three to
god,
tier
tier
four
3
is
to
even
tier 4.
worse. Yeah,
How is Heatran still up here? I haven't seen that dude in months.
true. All right. So right away, Torn. I was I think one of the people that was like pushing for Torn to be on the survey in the first place. I think this mod has gotten many buffs the last few gens. Dynamic speed with Prankster Tailwind, most notably Bleakwind this gen. Uh, and really, I think this is uh, the one mon that really comes to mind when I think about this metagame right now. I think it's very punishing when you have Torn and they don't, because you automatically have an advantage in speed control. It's very difficult to run anything that's not Torn for your speed control. And contrary to other Tailwind setters, Bleakwind gives it more of a presence on the field after it's actually set Tailwind. It gets to just fire off that 100 base power spread move. Uh, Granted with 80% accuracy, but that's also something that adds to the not great feeling that comes with using this mod or playing against it. Probably the most variance-inducing mod in the tier, which honestly is a pretty good thing because the variance is not like two-way variance or anything. It's just like missing moves or getting speed drops or whatever. But yeah, I'm not a fan of this. I think they probably need to see a suspect test for this. I'm not entirely sure it's like the broken element, but I definitely think it should be suspect tested. I think there's like really nothing else that quite feels as dominant as this, right? Like, I don't know. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Let's go look at the sample teams because I want to make my point with the types of teams that are emerging because of the pressure Torn offense is putting on the metagame. Specifically, the combinations of Torn plus Lando I or Torn plus Goldango, but especially the former. There is almost nothing in this tier that can stand up to Torn and Lando I being next to each other. The only Mons are going to be Wellspring, the most obvious tier 1 in the tier, but Wellspring has to burn a Tera to do that. Or this very niche, weird worm priority team that has a Ting-Lu and an Earthworm that manages to wall both of those Pokemon. Like, we are using Earthworm right now because it manages to wall these two Pokemon that are so dominant and easy to run in one of the premier archetypes. Like, you see a Lando, there's gonna be a Torn next to it a lot of the time, but there's gonna be some form of other speed control. Because at the end of the day, Bleakwind Storm is a threat. It's not just this is a support Pokemon. Tornadus can actively win games with the amount of pressure it pushes on the near ubiquitous amount of grass types that a team has to run just to deal with Lando I in the tier right now.
Yeah, yeah,
And
I definitely agree with that.
you put this on top of the high cadence nature of having Prankster Tailwind, forcing other archetypes like Pow Offense that we see here or Raging Bolt emerging to try to click Electro Webs to deny a little bit of speed control and stand up to Torn. But and look at Raging Bolt on the sample teams right here. It's on one sample. It's obviously a very good Pokemon, but it's not Torn.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
have a weird and strange balance where a lot of teams are committing multiple resources just to stand up to this one pairing. Never mind Goldingo and its absurd defensive typing next to Torn and its ability to click Make It Rain, among other threatening sweepers. That it's just like I have to question if it's actually a healthy amount of pressure in Builder for the tier, just having this one offensive tool on a support Pokemon that enables
yeah,
so many other gargantuan threats.
yeah. The
Like
other
even now,
thing,
half of the VR is weak to Landorus Incarnate.
not tier one, by the way, somehow. Um, yeah, Lando I, the big thing that's Archaludon, Itson, Hands, Goldengo, Glamora, Kingambit, Raging Bull. That is an insane number of mods in your tier two week to Lando. There's really like nothing that's like very good that switches into it. And the other
Room
point I
after
want to make
Tera
here
too.
is this team right here, Frosty Fan Room. I think the other thing we've seen to like kind of take down some of this Tord stuff is like the rise of snow. Snow is like a very frustrating element of this metagame to me personally. However, I don't think it actually stems from snow itself. I think it stems from the fact that running like you want to run the Tord stuff because that's like the best stuff of the tier in general, I think. But the snow really can punish that pretty hard. And it can be very difficult to beat like this kind of fan room style here. When you don't have when you're kind of necessitating running like at least two ice weeks on your team, often more, as we see. Like, I guess none of these really have that issue. It's pretty well built teams, but it can come up. Yeah, I think it's just a very
Or
centralizing mod, and we've seen it like three POW sample teams. It's actually insane. I don't think we've ever had three POW, and that's primarily because it has so many targets to hit with ice right now. Um,
I don't even know if there's ever been a DOU tier that had 4 teams with ice types on the samples like this. Just
Low key,
the
maybe
amount of
not.
pressure the
Yeah.
amount of pressure the ice type offers because of the extreme prevalence of Torn and grass types. Grass types owing to their own utility or just having to stand up to Earth power Lando, which is only a good mon because Tornadus and Prankster Talent exists.
Well, I will say, uh, if Tor wasn't around, we'd probably see a lot more Whimsicott, and Whimsicott plus Lando is also a very competent strategy, I think. But the thing is, there's no reason to run Whimsicott, as there's no reason to run Roaring Moon, because you have Tor that does it better. Um, and so I think it's a very direct response here. We have two horn teams here. I'm gonna discount this gouging fire team because really this is like the weakest sample. People were discussing that earlier. It's a good team, but it's not really necessarily like doesn't really necessarily hold up into some of the other dominant archetypes at the moment. But we have two Torn teams, and then two teams that are like very specifically meant to counter that archetype, and then an outdated raid team. Like, this team is still decent, but I will call it outdated. I don't think it really stands up very well into like the Torn Lando stuff. If I'm being real.
It still has a random trick room setter just to be able to deal with that in the first place.
Yeah, that is true. But this is all a roundabout way to say. I think we gotta suspect Torn. It's very centralizing. Having your Prankstermon being able to do just like so much with offensive pressure. Really, because there's so many grass types as well, like you mentioned. Uh, but yeah, I definitely think this should probably get a suspect. I think it sticks out. I think this would be like the most impactful suspect you could do at probably bettering the tier, uh, because I think if you address some of these other issues, they don't really affect the core problems I think the tier kind of has at the moment. So on that note, Pow, what do you think about Pow? We already talked about this a little bit, but
I
what
will
are your
say what
thoughts?
I have said for the heavy majority of the generation. I don't think Pow is the primary problem, but I think it is a degenerate Pokemon that actively discourages defensive gameplay or even balanced gameplay in favor of just blowing things up. And it itself has so little defensive utility that it makes teams fragile just by existing and being as strong as it is.
Yeah, I think it has a lot of targets right now, but I don't really think it's like the actual issue with the metagame. Um, I definitely think like Pow is very good. I also think Dragonite is very good. Those two together, maybe the best they've been for a while. But I think it's more of like a target thing rather than like the mon itself
Lando
actually being like
Torn,
broken. Yeah,
Rillaboom,
it just
Archaludon dropping the Sacred Sword.
yeah, it just hits a lot of things and that are good in the metagame right now, but it itself I don't think is actually problematic. And then Gambit, Fraud Watch, why is this on here? There is an actual reason why it's on here. People have talked about it before, but I don't think that's really as relevant in this metagame. Pressured very, very heavily by Lando. In fact, I haven't really seen Gambit much at all. Um, it's
It
on
is on
two
a
sample
sample team.
teams. It's on two, but like meh. Like I don't know. I don't think this
Eh,
mod is like not. I don't think it's very good. I don't even think it's tier two right now. But if I had like, I think if we'd actually voted on it, I would have voted it in tier three. It's just pressured by a lot. And instant itself, like sure you punish that, but like meh. I don't know. I'm just not. I'm not a big fan of this mod. I don't think it's broken
Gambit to
by
me
any
right
stretch
now
of the
feels like
imagination.
it kind of feels like why am I using Gambit instead of Pal? Because Pal has more targets and does the dark stab thing a little bit better right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think there's better ways to punish instant than Kingambit. I think that's kind of its issue, right? It's not like a bad mod. I'm kind of like hating on it a little bit here, but I don't think it's broken by any. It's not, I don't think anyone actually holds the opinion that it's broken right now. Maybe a couple months ago, it's a little bit easier to have that opinion when we had like the couple of weeks when Clefo was pretty dominant. Um, all right, Archaludon. Well, why don't you take this one first?
This thing is Ape 2, is how I feel about it. This thing is load 5 support Pokemon for this one behemoth and just say, I don't care, I'm gonna force it to win the game, and then it actually does it. And you don't have to think about counterplay that much because, oh look, I have three follow me users in the tier that are perfectly fine or really, really, really good, and like Water Pond or Cinny or Amoonguss. I have Tera to make sure that I don't get properly checked by the Pokemon that are supposed to be able to check me. I have multiple ways to set up rain, including probably one of the top 3 Pokemon in the tier in Torn. I genuinely think this for Torn right now. It's like, oh look, I have free Tailwind, I have free Prankster Rain Dance. It's like there are so many enablers in the tier for bullshit, and this Mon is bullshit incarnate. I made an Espathra team, and this thing actually was able to carry that on its own. That shouldn't happen. This thing is able to do things that just shouldn't happen in a Pokemon battle.
Yeah, I think this is another one I think should maybe be suspected, but I also want to see Torn suspected first. My reasoning for that is, like I said earlier, I think Torn is a more systemic issue. Uh, and kind of the same way that like I kind of wanted like a Flutter suspect before a Dio suspect. I think it's generally better to go after like more of like the root problems when they're more identifiable, which to be fair, not always identifiable, but Arch is definitely an interesting one. I think like Tera is really dumb on this one in particular. It gets a lot of mileage out of Tera, but I don't really have like too many like games where I've actually felt that Archaludon was pretty stupid. I think it's I think it's probably because I run a lot of like Lando Eye in general, but it does have the potential to run away with games, and I think Stamina is really stupid when it's on like such a good mon. Uh, So yeah, I think this should be suspect tested, but I'm not as confident that it's broken as I kind of am about Torn. Um, yeah, I don't know. Anything else you want to add here?
At the
Do you have
very
any like
least, we
specific
finally know.
games besides like the Espacro shit?
Mm, Not off the top of my mind, I tend to bleep this one from my memory.
You know what? Fair enough.
At least now we know what the
It's
best body press user in the tier is,
oh yeah, everything else
definitively.
cringe. Everything else is not nearly as good as this in terms of doing that. Yeah, this is a threatening one that probably needs to be have a look taken at it. All right, Whimsicott beat up. This is another one I don't really run. Follow me. That's it.
You know,
Okay.
you know, mm, it doesn't need to go, but it is not adding anything to the metagame at all. And if Follow Me didn't exist on an Ogre Pawn, I don't know if we would be able to dismiss this at all. With Covert Cloak and Upper Hand on Terrakion and Archaludon existing at all, it is a very, very degenerate strategy, and I would not mind seeing it go in the same vein that I would not mind seeing evasion abilities go. They aren't really a problem right now, but they certainly don't add anything to the tier.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel similar to this, like I felt about Ally Switch in Gen 8. I think this is like kind of stupid, but like at the same time, we don't really see enough of it in like high level play for me to really feel like it's worth taking a look at the moment. Maybe in the future. I think if there was like a good Archaludon plus beat up team, I think that would probably be something that could convince me about it. But I haven't actually seen an Archaludon beat up team that's felt like that good. Primarily because running Whimsicott is kind of a big committal when you have Tord. Um, but this is yeah, I definitely feel like with Archaludon it could be kind of dumb. Terrakion is kind of an fun one, but it did get some tools that make it a little stupid. All right, Tera. Tera has been
Oh boy.
like my views on this go back and forth a lot, and I've never actually felt that it's like broken. I do think it's a very like tilting mechanic, but I also think it's like very balanced. I think there's like a lot of counterplay to it. I don't think this is really something we should be looking at the moment. It kind of has the same effect that a lot of the other generational mechanics have, in that it really benefits the top mons more than it benefits uh, the lesser mons. But I think that's more of a feature of just like like gimmicks in general, rather than actually a specific Terra thing. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't think this is like a right now thing. I definitely think this is something to keep an eye on because like, eh. But like, I don't think we really have that much of a reason to look at it. I know you rarely actually see like very stupid Terra interactions in games. Like in the builder, I think it's a little annoying because it's a little difficult to account for at times. But like in general, I don't think this is an issue.
I have changed my opinion on Terra a lot this gen. I started out being hard ban into it's just a skill issue into it enables a lot of creative counterplay into maybe we should be open Terra or even open team sheet into I'm kind of unfavorable towards it again just because of how much it favors top mons in the metagame and how much it expands the power differential between things. And I think the thing that really turned me against Hera lately, I I've talked about this before with people. I've been told that I've overreacted to it, but watching Terra ground Iron Crown blow up a Heatran in the finals of invitationals at the beginning of the at the end of last year and winning that game just kind of it just felt so wrong to watch to me. It completely it completely tore apart that entire team, and that entire series just felt like a waste of time after that to me. And it's really shaped how I feel about Terra right now. I do think that Wellspring, Lando Eye, and Archaludon using Tera. Those 3 in particular really strike me as this mechanic is absolutely stupid, and it enables these mons to do things that they shouldn't be able to. And then at the same time, Wellspring Terra Water is kind of holding the tier together a little bit against a lot of top threats. So it's a complicated issue for me. I I don't think it should be shelved. I think this should be discussed a lot more because like this would be the biggest ban of the generation because it's the gimmick of the generation. It permeates everything, but it's really hard to tell if it actually benefits the metagame in my eyes because it is very clear to me that terrestrialization favors top Pokemon and creates a massive power gap between the very top and everything else that is playable in a tier. And it still does enable some stupid cheese, but I don't think that's the main problem with it.
Yeah, that's fair. I think there's some you made some pretty good points there. My thing with it is like I keep bringing it up toward a lot. Apologies, but like I feel like my problems with like the best mods being better than everything else is primarily due to like speed control being so like free in this gen, right? Uh, I think it kind of just creates like I think that to me is like a confounding variable with Terra. The games in the past where I felt like Terra like really messed with like the way I played were all games where like it was like a torn mirror and then like I wanted to Oko their mon, but I was like afraid they were gonna Terra, and so it's like if they I like had to like make a kind of like a call there. Sometimes even on turn one, but that was more of a thing in like the Flutter metagame. I think Flutter was really stupid with Terra. I think I was actually one of the few people that thought Flutter was like one of the mods that just abused it because Terra Fairy was so free on it. You got such a like a big power boost. But I generally think like with Terra, it's more of like the specific mons we have in the metagame are like more of an issue with it because we've seen in the past that like there's been metagames where Terra was felt very very healthy to me, and I think like if we actually take care of like dealing with the things that we have with the metagame that we don't like, I think this becomes a lot less of an issue. I think in general, DOU right now is kind of like feeling from the like the loss of Flutter. It's really changed like the dynamic of the tier. We always had like some like broken bond stabilizing things. And so I think we're still like in the process of like adjusting to like without having not having that option around. And so it's like I
I
think we need
still
more
have
time and more
Wellspring.
tiering before we like make an actual call on Terra. I definitely think there should be more discussion about it because I don't like the way that like some people frame this issue as like it's untouchable. We should never talk about it. Um, because really, I think we should try to like avoid like banning the gimmick because it's one of the things that gives the identity to the tier beyond anything else. But at the same time, like at the end of the day, I do think like any mechanic that doesn't require an item is a little bit degenerate, quite frankly. Because it's so free. Like you don't give up anything to choose your Terra type most of the time. Well, okay, you do, but what you give up is being able to change your Terra type to something else. So it's like I'm not a fan of these gimmicks that don't have items. I've accepted the fact that most likely the gimmicks going forward are not going to have items. But I don't. That doesn't mean I like really think that it's like the most balanced way to have your gimmick function. You know. But again, I don't think this is really the pressing issue. Anything else? We should. This is a good topic. We could go back and forth on it a fair amount.
It's kind of like terrestrialization inherently accentuates the strongest aspects of a tier. Like this applies to every tier I've looked at in SV so far. Some tiers are more stable, and Terra is a great like OSGT 3 meta. Like everything was bulky, but the tier was kind of like stabled out. Yes, we did have Flutter, and that was kind of stupid, but Terra wasn't like the biggest issue at the time. And the metagame was like playing around tools and everything. up until the point where Ogerpon got added, and now we have another tool to enable threats. And now, oh look, I have Follow Me, I have Terrain Control, I have Intimidate, Fake Out, and then I have Terrestrialization on top of all these support tools to enable my broken win conditions. And oh look, SV added 10, 20 broken Pokemon with 600 base stat total that can win the game with random setup moves or signatures. And it's like, the more unstable the tier is with threats, the worse Tera makes it, because it makes it harder to check those threats. It is not as good as a checking tool as it is a I'm gonna win the game now tool. And that's like the aspect about Tera that really warrants the discussion around banning it, I think. If that is something that cannot be controlled within a tier or maintained, because there's a possibility that SV will just continue to play like this hyper offensive with no true stability in the tier, because there's just so many threats that got added no matter how much we keep chopping. OU has been kind of a poster child for this effective SV, where it doesn't seem like no matter how many things you ban, there's one more mon that rises up to be a stupid Terra threat. And it's like, maybe that's the direction DOU will go into, but I'd like to keep chopping a little bit on the actual mons in the tier right now than looking at Terra just yet.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah, I think kind of like when we've had the more. It's kind of how I feel like with coaching as a move in some of like the formats where it's been a problem. The more your tier has problems, the more Terra is gonna feel stupid. Like when you already got problems, like Terra and coaching are gonna like make them worse, you know. But I
Hi,
think like
Natex.
yeah, exactly. But I think like exactly, and I think that's actually something we do with Terra and Natix. I think Terra and Natix is really stupid because like, why can't I Terra my Zygarde? Like, come on now, what are we doing here? But like,
Uh-huh.
it's not. I think taking this out would not actually really solve much right now. I think we've got actual issues regarding
Because
the
like if we
metagame that are
take
not Terra.
terrestrialization out, it's not like Chien-Pao type structures are gonna go away. They're still gonna blow things up. It's not like Archaludon's gonna stop, because it's still gonna have Ogerpon next to it to deal with Lando Eye. And Lando Eye is still going to be Lando Eye, tearing things to shreds with Tailwind support next to it right now. These mons are enhanced by Tera and accentuated, but they're still going to have so many other tools provided by this gen to be stupid
Yeah,
with. But Tera is definitely one of those tools that makes them stupid, and it might need to be looked at. And I definitely don't think we stop talking about Tera.
yeah, yeah. I think I would like to see open Terra. This has been my take the entire generation. I don't think having open Terra takes anything. I think that's you can only get positive experiences out of having open Terra as opposed to not having it. I don't see any possible downside to that. But at the same time, I don't really think that's like at the same time, I don't really think that actually really solves much of anything at all. Because it doesn't like deal with the root causes of Terra in the builder and centralizing and all that. But I do think like having like the information about that is a little bit more conducive to a balanced metagame. But at this, I don't think that's an actual solution that should even really be considered. Actually, all right,
Knowing that the Archaludon is Terra Grass instead of Terra Fairy is not going to stop the interaction where I have to predict whether or not it actually is going to Terra on the turn that I need to kill it with my Archaludon. Do I click Earth Power? Do I click Such Bomb? It's still a 50-50.
you click substitute and bait it out. Okay, evasion abilities, meh, just meh. Why do I care? Okay, like if we see Articuno start to see use, then like yeah, I could definitely see like maybe we should get rid of these. But like for some reason, people just haven't looked at that. And I'm not sure if that just means it's not really as effective a strategy in DOU as it was in like BGC or is. But
Uh, uh,
I think
we
it's
just
more
have
like a
Kyurem.
Kyurem. Yeah, Kyurem. So I think Kyurem. being like the better snow abuser kind of makes Snow Cloak not really an issue. And then Sand Veil, like to run Sand Veil, first you have to make the commitment to run T-Tar, and then you have to make the commitment to run an even worse Pokemon with Sand Veil. Like what even has Sand Veil, bro? Like what are we doing? Garchomp, bro.
Which one's actually rated DU? That's crazy.
That is, I'm trying to think of the right word. That is so incredibly fraudulent that I don't even want to discuss it further. But yeah, I don't think this is really a priority. Again, something that you could probably get rid of it, or you definitely could get rid of it, and maybe you should get rid of it because it
You
doesn't
could
really
quick ban
add
this.
anything. Yeah,
I
but
I
it
don't
doesn't
think
really.
anyone would care if the council quick banned this. Like, it's not affecting the metagame, but it's not something that people want to deal with down the road.
I feel like this is not something we should waste a suspect on. Either quick ban it or just like don't deal with it at all. Like I don't know, this doesn't feel worth to me. I kind of just don't feel strongly. Okay, Tatsugiri. Now we're getting into the testing things down from Doobers. This is like something where I've always felt like not really that crazy. It's just more uncompetitive than anything. Uh, I don't think it would be actually like that insane with the amount of like new tools and stuff we have, but it's not the time. It is not the time. It just isn't. Uh, we have actual issues, so that's kind of what I think about all three of these. But what do you think about Tatsugiri in particular?
There's no benefit from having Dozogiri in the tier, man.
Yeah. Okay, you get a water type. That's it.
We get a water type, and like water types are just dire in this tier because Wellspring exists and invalidates all of their existences unless you're walking Wake on Sun, but Sun's fraudulent anyways, and Volcanion exists, and Volcanion is possibly the Devil's Goat. But like,
And also not a water type, practically.
yeah, kind of.
Because
It's like
you don't really have the same like defensive benefit that water typically has with that one because you're running getting the ground and rock weaknesses out of it as well.
I already have to make sure that I have a dedicated way to deal with Lando in this tier. I have to have a dedicated way to deal with some random setup bullshit. And it could be a Calm Mind Bolt, it could be a Kingambit, it could be a Goldango. I have to make sure that I don't have enough. I'm not like frail enough to get folded by Palfins. I have to make sure I'm not passive enough to get taken advantage of by Hale or Ting Lu. Thank you, sample team. That was so cool of you to make that mon good again. It's like this this doesn't have any overlapping counterplay, like hard overlapping counterplay with any of that stuff, and the builder's already strained as it is.
Yeah, agree. Not the time. Okay. Kyurem-Black. I don't want to see this. Come on. Clear Amulet plus 670 base stat total. Need I say more? Anything to add here?
This doesn't have the same argument as we don't have the right counterplay. This is an Uber and it has an actual move pool now. It doesn't belong. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it just doesn't belong. Unless you want to add another Raging Bolt to your stat stick to the metagame, but it's like, okay. I guess.
I shudder to think of this on Hail. We're running like normal Kyurem. Imagine having Kyurem-Black on Hail. That's like just super backs. Like no. Okay. Urshifu-Rapid Strike. I actually think this is the only one here that I would even consider at all, which is ironic because it's also probably broken. And I also don't think it's the time. But I think the tier would get more out of Urshifu than anything else.
The tier
It would kind of pressure
it
a
would
few
benefit
things.
from having a water type. It would benefit from having a water type, and having the auto crit is nice for Iron Press degeneracy that we see now and again. But also, it's just like it's Urshifu. Why are you hitting through protect? Why did you do that? You didn't have to do that, man. It, if anything, it'll just drive the tier to be more offensive, and it certainly does that enough in VGC already. which is just blow things up in 4 turns most of the time. It feels like watching this thing run around and just kill shit.
Yeah, I think
It would
um
be it would be nice to have another water type.
this I think there's actually enough to check it now, if I'm being honest. I don't know. I'm probably like alone on this, but it's just like if there's any duper mon that would actually like help the tier, it would be this one. So I think I'll put it sound that's like might not be broken, but like realistically it probably is, but and it's not really a priority right now, but at the same time, like if all these Ubers, like the other two should not even be discussed whatsoever. I don't think Urshifu is like that, to be honest, at all. It's more it's more conducive to I think a balance. You can have a balanced metagame with Shifu in it. You can't have a balanced metagame where you have Tatsugiri or Kyurem-Black in it. If I'm being honest, like I don't know. And also, it's just like it's a consistent mon. I think this would I don't know. Again, not a priority, but I'm not voting it the same way because it's I don't to me it's not in the same class as the other two. Uh, the other two I would prefer if we never saw a survey on it again. But this one I think worth somewhat keeping an eye on. Um,
If Tornadus wasn't in this tier, it'd be pretty easy for me to say we can give it a shot.
yeah, yeah.
Because Torn Chifu is really, really stupid. It is really, really stupid. But if Torn were to go from this tier, I'd I'd maybe be willing to give Urshifu a shot. I would also be very prepared to ban it again if necessary.
Yeah, and even if this was suspect tested, I kind of doubt it would actually be like let back into the metagame. But I wouldn't actually be opposed to a suspect for this one as I would be for the other two. Like if the other two were suspected, I'd be very upset. I can't lie. Okay.
A tier to
Anything else in the
2.
metagame that you feel might be potentially ban worthy? Let's
Okay,
take a look over.
this is my hottest take of maybe the entire generation, and I have said some head ass shit in the OU Cord on the
So
forums and
true.
to you. I want follow me banned. I want the
Yo, what
entire
the
move
fuck?
banned. I hate this move. I
He's
like what
cooking.
Wellspring does when it's offensively checking things in the tier. I like the utility options it has that aren't follow me. I think follow me it just enables too many things. Follow me has been one of the strongest moves in doubles since its very addition, like all the way back. It's one of the best moves of all time in doubles, and I just think it's too much. I don't think it's actually good for the metagame because of what it does to enable threats. Like, it has so much more control than anything else in the entire game. Like, even over Covert Cloak now, like, Covert Cloak was added, so Fake Out isn't even on the same level as Follow Me is anymore. There is no counter to Follow Me. There is no there's nothing on its level at all, and I think Ogerpon has slowly but surely taken over the tier and enabled threats way more than any other point in this generation that we've seen. Rage Powder has fucking safety goggles and it's stuck on it's stuck on Among Us, but Follow Me, you have the best Pokemon in the tier, bar none. Like, I don't want to see Ogerpon banned because of the things it checks both defensively and offensively, but I really don't appreciate the way Follow Me enables so many setup mons. It enables so many things under Tailwind. It's just so safe. It's just so safe. And never mind what Indeedee does with Trick Room shenanigans and Psy Spam shenanigans with Follow Me. Because that mon itself is also ridiculous with that move. It's one of the safest ways to set up Trick Room is just having a Follow Me Indeedee and then something else sets up Trick Room next to it. Almost guaranteed because the terrain control plus, oh look, I have to hit the Indeedee that has ridiculous amounts of SPDF or whatever have you. It's like I think it's too much control to offer one move slot on one Pokemon, especially for how strong the Pokemon that have it now are.
Yeah, that's fair. I think this is it's kind of like to me, Wellspring is the
You
dumbest
could
follow me mod we've ever had. I can't lie. I don't think the follow itself is actually follow me. I think it's Wellspring. Like I definitely see those issues you're talking about. I don't even like necessarily like think that's like the big problem. But like this is Jirachi. If Jirachi like it got automatic,
damn it.
if Jirachi got Intrepid Sword, bro, like that's literally what this mod does practically. Like it has an actual like ability that aids it with using like the thing. Uh, Granted, it's not quite as bulky. It doesn't have like this, but it has a very excellent typing, similarly to Jirachi. Um, Wellspring's like I could see this being a little annoying, but like Follow Me itself is like I don't know. I think that's a little too out there for me. I think the problem is like typically the mods that have Follow Me are not um 550 base stat legendary Pokemon that have a special ability when they're Tera. And when Wellspring or no, when Ogerpon was first released, I said in the long run, Ogerpon might be more broken than Urshifu. Now I was definitely wrong about what I said there, but like I definitely
We're
think
that wrong.
giving up giving a mod like this like Follow Me is just so stupid. Like why did you do that? This mod did not need Follow Me. But I think Wellspring is like the one thing not on this survey that really to me could be looked at. I think it's generally pretty healthy, and I don't even think
Like, the
it's like tier one. Like it, if all these other things aren't tier one, I don't really see it as tier one. But like, it's a little dumb. I can't lie. I can't lie. But I don't think follow like, bro. You're telling me like follow me Magmar is a problem, bro. Like, what are you cooking there?
my specific issue here, and maybe this is just me being too biased towards Wellspring itself, or maybe it's because I've lost my damn mind. I don't think Wellspring itself is a problem for like the things that it checks in the metagame. Checking Lando is very important. The way it checks fire types is very important. And it's like it has very good utility that is like useful. And the Swords Dance variant is legitimately cool. It's an actual water type sweeper that's good in the tier, something that we don't have otherwise. It's just the specific aspect of Follow Me on the Mon in conjunction with Embody aspect on the Terra and in conjunction with checking all these things is too much. And I think I would rather chip away this one aspect that like than take away the entire mon because you're gonna have two other ogre pawns to deal with at minimum before like you get an ogre pawn list tier one tier. Because Hearthflame will easily rise up if Wellspring isn't there killing it or out competing it. Follow Me is the aspect of this Pokemon that pushes it way over the line that everything else is at.
Yeah, yeah. I think I just don't understand why they give it follow me. I really just don't. But I think it's in the future I could see it being problematic. It's just like right now I don't really see it as the issue. To me, the issue right now is it's either Torn or Archaludon. Uh, Anything else, I'm not really confident that actually dealing with it, like getting rid of it or suspecting it, would actually tackle the matter at hand. Uh, what do you think? Anything else here? Eh, eh.
To scrolling through the builder and half the mons in DDOU look like ass. Like they just look like terrible mons to run at first
So
glance.
true. Yeah, I don't. I think that's mostly it. Uh, in terms of mods that I think are broken, I don't know. Wellspring's the only thing that like really didn't get mentioned. Let's check the VR really quickly. Yeah, none of these guys really feel like problematic to me. Any other comments? Any game concerns? I think this is like
Darkrai.
very so true. Hold on. Free Darkrai and Tatsugiri. Okay, I'm not even gonna let that out. It's not worth it. But like, at some point, can we fix that? Like, bro, we've got two banned Dubers Pokemon that are like so incredibly fraudulent at being broken. Like there's just like one obvious thing that makes them broken, and for some reason we have like why do we have? Hold on.
Why do we have Basculegion male banned and not the move?
Why do we have 475 BST Dragon Water type, which only defining trait is a useless ass ability, but is really funny paired with like another Pokemon? Why is I have I don't know. This is not. Can we ban Commander, bro? Like, it doesn't even matter. Like, I would like no one would use it anyway, so I don't. But like, just as a matter of practice, like, really stupid to just have this one banned. It's so I've never understood it, really. And Darkrai even more so. Like, we've banned Dark Void before. Why can't we do that now? Like, what are we doing? Um, last thing I want to add, I want to see a Shadow Tag suspect at some point in the future. Not the time, but like when we banned it, we had Tinglu in tier 1 on the VR. Like, we were bad at the game, and it's never been tested ever since. I think I'm a little bit more partial to the ability than others are, but I've seen it in Nat decks, and while there are differences between the tiers, I really don't think it's like problematic in Nat decks whatsoever. And I think we have got enough tools that, like, personally, I don't really see it as broken, but not the time. I think, really, in my opinion, um, Tort that should be the suspect, in my opinion. I think that's really what we should be looking at. Maybe Archaludon, if there's more people that actually feel strongly about that. Either or is kind of like something I
But
think we should see.
we didn't we didn't mention how stupid Covert Cloak makes Torn at all.
Oh, true. That's
That
another
I
buff Torn
that
got.
I oh my god, that fucking item.
Yeah, it's another
Oh
thing that
god.
just makes it's like Tailwind so free. You have no like fake out counterplay to it either. But yeah, I think that's mostly it. Thank you for watching. And if you feel strongly about the metagame, please post here, fill out the survey, or post to this thread. Uh, that'll probably be where this video goes, along with maybe a little bit of a brief explanation of what I think about things. But yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.